My wedding was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Everyone kept saying it, especially my mother, Amelia. She'd beam, a little too brightly, at anyone who'd listen, talking about tradition and family legacy. I'm Martina, I'm 28, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the good daughter, the one who always did what was expected. My parents, Amelia, 54, and Dwayne, 57, had a way of making you feel like their expectations were your own deepest desires. My upcoming marriage to Timothy Foster, 31, was no different. He was from a prominent family, wealthy, and frankly a bit bland. But he was a good match, according to my father, who rarely spoke unless it was about finances or appearances. The first crack in my carefully constructed facade appeared during a final dress fitting. My mother was on the phone in the next room, her voice hushed but clear through the thin wall. "The Fosters have agreed to the gift," she whispered. $74,000. It's more than we hoped." Then my father's deeper voice, pragmatic as ever. "Excellent. That covers Nesta's apartment deposit and Sasha's Bali trip, with enough left over for the new roof." My blood ran cold. A gift? $74,000? It wasn't a gift for us. It was a payment for me. I walked into the living room where my mother was now sitting, scrolling through her phone, a serene smile on her face. "What gift are you talking about, Mom?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. She looked up, her smile faltering. "Oh, just a generous contribution from Timothy's family. It's a tradition, darling, to help the bride's family with expenses." $74,000 for expenses, I pressed. "And you've already spent it on Nesta's apartment and Sasha's Bali trip, without even telling me." My younger brother, Nesta, 24, had been struggling to find a place, and Sasha, 22, my younger sister, was obsessed with her influencer dreams and a luxury trip to Bali. Amelia's eyes hardened. "It's honouring tradition, Martina. It's for the family. You're part of this family. It's how we ensure everyone's future." Her tone was chillingly calm, as if she were discussing the weather. In that moment, it hit me. I wasn't their daughter. I was an asset, a transaction, and I vowed silently that this wouldn't stand. I wouldn't be bought and sold. Later that night, digging through my father's study, I found them. Printed copies of texts between my parents and Timothy's father, Brandon. They weren't wedding plans, they were business negotiations, detailing the bride price and payment schedules. My future laid out in cold, hard numbers. The night I found those texts, my world tilted. I couldn't sleep. The next morning, I called Olivia, my best friend since childhood. She was the only person I trusted completely, the one who saw past the good daughter act. We met at our usual coffee shop, a small, unassuming place far from my parents' watchful eyes. "They sold me, Liv," I said, pushing my phone across the table. The screen displayed the damning conversations, the cold, businesslike negotiation of my worth. $74,000 for Nesta's apartment, for Sasha's Bali trip. Olivia, usually so composed, looked genuinely horrified. "Martina, that's barbaric. What are you going to do?" "I'm not walking down that aisle," I stated, the words firm, resolute. "Not like this. Not after they reduced me to a commodity." We spent hours brainstorming, the initial shock giving way to a fierce determination. I needed to disappear, but not quietly. I wanted them to know exactly why. Over the next few days, under the guise of wedding errands, I became a ghost. I found a hidden safe in my father's study, tucked behind a loose panel in the bookshelf. Inside, more contracts, more texts, even bank statements confirming the transfer of the $74,000. I photographed everything, hundreds of images, backing them up to a cloud drive and a burner phone. I opened new bank accounts in a different state, booked a one-way flight for the morning of the wedding, and reserved a hotel room under a fake name. I even drafted the words for an envelope I planned to leave behind, simply titled, "Warranty Expired." One afternoon, while I was supposedly picking up flowers, Nestor found me looking distracted. He'd always been the quiet one, often overlooked by our parents, but he had a way of seeing things. "You okay, Martina?" he asked, his brow furrowed. "You seem different, like you're about to run a marathon, but also disappear." I just smiled, a tight practice smile. "Just wedding jitters, little brother." He didn't look convinced. My resolve, though already ironclad, solidified completely when a text from Sasha popped up on my phone. It was meant for one of her influencer friends, but she'd accidentally sent it to our family chat. "OMG, Bali's going to be epic! Can't believe Martina's wedding is literally funding my dream trip, LOL. So glad she's the responsible one." The casual cruelty, the blatant disregard for me as a person, was the final nail in the coffin. They truly saw me as nothing more than a means to an end. The rehearsal dinner felt like a performance. My parents, Amelia and Dwayne, were in peak form, gliding through the room, all smiles and graciousness. They played the part of proud, loving parents perfectly, accepting compliments on the beautiful union they had orchestrated. Timothy, oblivious as ever, kept trying to hold my hand under the table, his touch feeling alien and cold. He talked about our future, about merging our lives, while I felt like I was already a ghost, watching my own funeral. I felt utterly isolated, surrounded by people who saw me as a prop in their grand design. Flashes of childhood memories flickered through my mind. Every time I'd been told to be quiet, to smile, to conform. Every time my desires had been brushed aside for the family good. The guilt was a dull ache. Guilt for the deception, for the pain I was about to inflict. But mostly, guilt for ever believing they loved me unconditionally. During a lull, Nestor found me by the bar, away from the main group. He looked more serious than I'd ever seen him. "Martina, seriously, what's going on?" he asked, his voice low. "You've been acting weird for weeks. And Mum and Dad, they're too happy. It's unsettling." He paused, looking around as if someone might overhear. "I heard them talking about money, a lot of money, and you. It sounded transactional." My heart pounded. He knew something was off, but I couldn't tell him. Not yet. The plan depended on absolute secrecy. "Nestor, it's just the stress of the wedding," I lied, forcing a weak smile. "Everything's fine, just tired." He didn't look convinced, but he didn't push. He just squeezed my arm, a silent gesture of concern that felt like a knife twist. Later, back in my childhood bedroom at my parents' house, the adrenaline kicked in. I had to be precise. I slipped my burner phone, loaded with all the incriminating photos, into a waterproof pouch and taped it to the underside of the toilet tank. My passport and the one-way ticket were tucked into a hidden compartment, in the lining of an old suitcase I'd already stashed in Olivia's car earlier that day. She knew exactly where everything was. I was just zipping up my small carry-on, filled with essentials for my escape, when the door creaked open. "Martina, you in here?" Sasha's voice slurred and a little too loud. She stumbled in, smelling faintly of champagne. "Thought I heard something. What are you doing up? And what's with the bag?" My heart leaped into my throat. "Just packing a few things for the honeymoon, Sasha," I said, trying to sound casual, pushing the bag further under the bed with my foot. She squinted, her eyes unfocused. "Huh, looks like you're running away, not going on a trip." She giggled, swaying slightly. "Don't be silly. Go to bed. You're drunk." She just shrugged, turned, and stumbled back out. The close call sent a jolt of panic through me. I had to act faster. The pre-dawn darkness of my wedding day felt like a blanket, muffling the sounds of the sleeping house. Sasha's near discovery had lit a fire under me. There was no going back now. My small carry-on, packed with essentials, was already in Olivia's car, parked a few blocks away. My phone, passport, and the burner phone with all the evidence were stashed exactly where Olivia knew to find them, should anything go wrong. I sat at my childhood desk, the one where I'd done countless hours of homework, written essays, and dreamed of a future that looked nothing like this. I pulled out a fresh sheet of paper and began to write. Not a goodbye letter, but an explanation. A declaration. I started with my parents, detailing the betrayal, the exact figures, the cold, hard proof of their transaction. I didn't mince words. I told them I was not a commodity, that their traditions were just an excuse for greed, and that I would never forgive them for selling their own daughter. Then I wrote to Timothy. I explained that while I didn't blame him personally for his family's actions, he was complicit by association. I laid out the facts of the bride price, the financial arrangement that had formed the true basis of our union. I wished him well, but made it clear that I could never marry someone who was part of such a deal, even if he was unaware. My hands didn't shake. My heart was a stone. I printed out copies of all the incriminating texts and contracts I'd photographed. I placed them neatly on my bed, atop my carefully penned letters. On top of everything, I placed a plain white envelope. In bold block letters, I wrote the title I'd chosen weeks ago, Warranty Expired. It felt profoundly satisfying. My escape was meticulously planned. I'd discovered an old, rarely used service entrance at the back of the house, hidden behind overgrown bushes. It led directly to a side alley. I'd practiced the route in my head a dozen times. I slipped out of my room, moving like a shadow, down the stairs, past my parents' closed bedroom door. The house was silent save for the hum of the refrigerator. The lock on the service door was stiff, but I'd oiled it days ago. It clicked open with a soft thud. I stepped out into the cool morning air, pulling the door shut behind me, not bothering to lock it. I didn't look back. I walked briskly down the alley, my heart pounding a rhythm of freedom and fear until I reached the main road. Olivia's car was waiting, her engine idling softly. I slid into the passenger seat, not speaking, just nodding. She drove. Hours later, already through TSA and waiting at my gate, my phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. People are panicking. Nesta's seen your envelope. The anonymous airport lounge felt like a sanctuary. I watched the early morning news on a muted TV, sipping lukewarm coffee, a strange calm settling over me. Olivia's text, people are panicking. Nesta's seen your envelope, was the first ripple. I imagined the scene, the dawning horror on my parents' faces, the confusion. My phone started buzzing with notifications. First, a flurry of missed calls from Amelia, then Dwayne, then even Sasha. I ignored them all. Then came the social media alerts. Olivia was sending me snippets, short video clips, and screenshots. The scene shifted to the church, captured by a guest's phone. It was chaos. The aisle was empty, the altar decorated, but no bride. Guests murmured, their whispers growing louder. Amelia was weeping, her perfect facade crumbling, dabbing at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. Dwayne stood beside her, stone-faced, his jaw clenched, scanning the crowd as if I might materialize from thin air. Timothy, looking utterly humiliated, stood at the altar, his face a mask of confusion and growing fury. He kept checking his watch, then looking desperately towards the back of the church. Then a new clip popped up. My breath hitched. It was Nesta. He was standing at the front of the church, near the altar, holding my warranty-expired envelope. His face was pale, but his eyes held a fire I'd never seen before. The murmuring stopped. Everyone was staring at him. My sister, Martina, was supposed to be here. Nesta's voice, amplified by the church's sound system, cut through the silence. He held up the envelope. She's not. And she left this." He paused, looking directly at my parents, then at Timothy's family in the front row. "She walked away, and if you knew what I know, you'd applaud her." A gasp went through the crowd. Amelia let out a choked sob. Dwayne took a step forward, his hand outstretched as if to stop Nestor, but Nestor just shook his head, a look of profound disappointment on his face. He didn't read the letters, he didn't need to. His words, his stance, they were enough. Then the clips started coming in faster. People were live streaming. The story was exploding. "Bride ditches wedding, brother exposes family secret. Hamilton's caught in bride price scandal." Social media was erupting. My family's carefully constructed reputation, built on appearances and tradition, was being torn apart online, tweet by tweet, post by post. The comments were brutal, a mix of outrage and dark humour. The karma twist was already in full swing. From my anonymous perch, miles away, I watched the digital bonfire. The news cycle was relentless. My parents, Amelia and Dwayne, went from being pillars of the community to pariahs overnight. Guests from the wedding, fueled by Nestor's public declaration and the subsequent leak of my letters and evidence, I assume Nestor or Olivia had ensured they got out, were turning on them. The Fosters, especially Brandon, were furious. Legal threats started flying almost immediately, demanding the $74,000 back, citing breach of contract and fraud. Sasha, who had been so dismissive of me, was now a public spectacle. Her influencer dreams evaporated as her social media accounts were flooded with hate comments, mocking her Bali trip and calling her out for being funded by her sister's sale. She was ostracized online, her carefully curated image shattered. It was a bitter but undeniable satisfaction. Nestor, my quiet, overlooked younger brother, became an unlikely hero. Emboldened by my stance, he didn't back down. He gave interviews raw and honest, publicly denouncing our parents' actions. Martina was always the good daughter, the one who carried the family's burdens. He told one online news outlet, his voice steady. But they broke her. They broke her trust, and they broke our family. His words resonated, cementing the Hamiltons' disgrace in the public eye. It was exactly the kind of public reckoning I had envisioned. The catharsis was immense, a deep, bone-weary satisfaction that hummed beneath my skin. I had taken back my agency, exposed their hypocrisy, and watched their carefully constructed world crumble. But the revenge wasn't without its cost. My phone, which I occasionally checked for messages from old friends, remained largely silent. A few distant relatives sent angry, condemning texts, calling me selfish and destructive. I was a pariah to them, the one who had dared to break the unspoken rules. The loneliness was a cold companion, a quiet ache amidst the triumph. I knew I had burned bridges, not just with my immediate family, but with an entire network of people who valued appearances over truth. Then, 2 emails landed in my new anonymous inbox. The first was from Dwayne. It was short, venomous. "You have ruined us. You will pay for this, Martina. You will regret this for the rest of your life." The rage was palpable, even through the screen. The second email, however, was unexpected. It was from Aaliyah Foster, Timothy's sister. "Martina," it began, "I saw what happened. I've always questioned my family's traditions. I just wanted to say, I understand, and I'm so sorry." My new city was a whirlwind of unfamiliar streets and faces, a stark contrast to the suffocating familiarity I'd left behind. The liberation was intoxicating, a lightness I hadn't realized I was missing until it was there. But Dwayne's email, and the silence from everyone else I'd known, was a constant reminder of the chasm I'd created. The loneliness was real, a hollow echo in the quiet of my new apartment. A few days after I settled in, Olivia visited. She flew in, a whirlwind of concern and excitement, bringing a suitcase full of my things she'd retrieved. We spent hours talking, catching up, and, mostly, watching the news. The story of the runaway bride was still making headlines, though it was slowly shifting from sensationalism to more thoughtful discussions about arranged marriages and family expectations. "Nesta's a rock star," Olivia said, scrolling through a news article on her phone. "He's really owning it. He even started a GoFundMe for a local women's shelter, saying it's money for women who actually need help, not for family vanity projects." I smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile. My little brother stepping into his own. The email from Aaliyah Foster, Timothy's sister, had been a surprise. I'd replied cautiously, and we'd exchanged a few messages. She told me she was tired of the old money nonsense and the way her family treated relationships as transactions. It was a small, unexpected connection, a glimmer of understanding from the other side of the divide. Then, an invitation landed in my inbox. It was from an online platform that focused on personal stories of resilience and social commentary. They wanted me to speak anonymously about my experience, to share my perspective not as a victim, but as someone who chose freedom. It felt like a chance to control my own narrative, to shape the story on my terms, not theirs. I accepted. My anonymous interview went viral. My voice, stripped of my name and face, resonated with people far beyond what I could have imagined. Messages poured in, not just from women who had faced similar situations, but from anyone who felt trapped by family expectations or societal pressures. My story, once a personal act of revenge, had become a small movement, empowering others to shed their own oppressive traditions. It was overwhelming, humbling, and incredibly empowering. One afternoon, a few weeks into my new life, as I was walking back from the grocery store, I saw her, standing outside the coffee shop on the corner, looking around with an air of subtle searching. It was my mother's cousin, Clara. She lived a few states away, but her face was unmistakable. My heart lurched. Was she here to pressure me home? To plead for forgiveness? Or something else entirely? My encounter with Clara was inevitable. I didn't try to hide. I walked directly towards her, my grocery bag heavy in my hand. She spotted me, her eyes widening in surprise, then softening. "Martina," she said, her voice a fragile whisper. "Your mother sent me. She's not well." I looked at her, my expression unreadable. "And what does 'not well' mean, Clara? Is she finally facing the consequences of her actions?" Clara wrung her hands. "She's heartbroken. Your father is being sued by the Fosters. Sasha, she's a mess. They just want you to come home. To fix this." "There's nothing to fix," I stated, my voice steady. "They broke it. I'm not coming back. Not ever." I pulled out my burner phone, showed her a screenshot of Dwayne's threatening email. "This is what they think of me. This is their love. I chose myself, Clara, and I won't apologize for it." She looked at the screen, then back at me, a flicker of understanding, perhaps even admiration in her eyes. She nodded slowly, a silent acknowledgement. "I understand, Martina. I truly do." She turned and walked away, not looking back. The days that followed were a strange mix of emotions. I scrolled through the endless comments on my story, viral support from strangers, but also the occasional hateful message from someone who believed I dishonored my family. It was a constant reminder that my actions, while liberating for me, had ripple effects. I had gained freedom, but at the cost of the family I'd known, however flawed. The silence from Amelia and Dwayne was deafening, punctuated only by their lawyers' demands for the return of the gift money. Nesta and I started texting regularly. He was still giving interviews, still advocating for change, and he'd even started a small online community for people dealing with similar family pressures. He was finding his voice, and I was incredibly proud of him. Aliyah and I continued our cautious conversations, finding common ground in our shared experiences with controlling families. It was a new kind of connection, built on honesty rather than obligation. Revenge, I realized, didn't magically heal everything. It didn't erase the years of feeling undervalued or the sting of betrayal. It didn't bring back the naive daughter who once believed in her parents' unconditional love. But it did something else. It set me free. It carved out a space for me to breathe, to be truly myself, without the crushing weight of expectations. I was no longer a pawn in their game, no longer an asset